recording. Okay, go green.
Go green. Okay. No.
It's green.
You are online.
All right, everybody, welcome. This is our Crash Lab presentation. I am Andrew Lawhead.
And I am Joey Johnson.
And we were investigating the crash of the Varga Kachina. The Varga crashed in Oregon on its way to Washington.
All right, our findings were pretty simple. The pilot was decapitated from the seatbelt, and he was cut right in the midsection. So his body would have been just kind of splattered on the ground, but of course they cleaned that up for us. He did have experience in the Varga, so that was not a factor, we decided.
As you can see, the pilot was also decapitated, and we figured that because his headset was on the ground farther away from the plane.
All right, he did have family drama. He was going through a divorce, and he drank only 4 hours before flying. And the rule is 8 hours, so that's only half the time. Yeah.
Well, also the pilot had coronary artery disease, and he had 60% blockage in one of his coronary arteries. And we found that irregular heavy drinking can increase your risk of heart failure.
Here, you do this one, the next one.
Right. So the plane itself, it passed its pre-flight inspection without any problems. On its way down into the ground, it crashed at a 70-degree angle. It looked less steep than that because the plane actually wrinkled when it hit the ground, and that made the angle look a little lower, but it crashed at a 70-degree angle. It appeared at a 45. The crankshaft detached from the rest of the plane, and the plane also scorpioned, which means when it hit the ground, the tail of the plane came over the top and broke off, and the tail landed in front of the plane. The airspeed indicator also broke, and when it hit the ground, the indicator it slapped forward, and that was at 82 knots, so they could tell how fast it was going when it hit the ground.
Okay, this is showing the wrinkle from the crash. So going that fast, going that steep, it hit the ground, causing the ground to kind of erode a little bit, and then it kind of snapped back, like Lawhead was talking about. Go ahead. And I'll do this one too. All right, so no fire was present, so there was no spark from the electricity, although it did have plenty of fuel, so that also wasn't a factor. And like we said before, it crashed in Burns, Oregon.
And when it crashed, the wing kind of pushed in, or the fuel tank pushed in on the fuel, and the fuel expanded out because you cannot compress liquid. So the fuel pushed out, and it kind of made the wing get a little fatter where the fuel tank is.
That's Veronica.
That's the tail where it scorpioned off and landed in front of the plane. All right, what we concluded was that the pilot was struggling with a family situation, so he went drinking because he was not a happy camper. And so we figured he went to a bar, get his bar game on a little bit. And so what we decided, maybe he got rejected by a girl in Washington and decided he would fly to Oregon to meet some new people. And his bottle to throttle time was only 4 hours, so he was not in any condition to be flying a plane, and that led to his... Keep going.
So when he decided to go to the other bar, the flying conditions were not good, so he is on the IFR. So he was intoxicated, he had a heart problem, and flying conditions weren't good. So that put just too much stress on his heart, and he had a heart attack.
And when he had the heart attack, his plane went straight into the ground. He was unconscious, and he couldn't fly the plane.
All right, so how to prevent this is we said don't drink before you fly. and don't try to fly in conditions that are harsh, because he was on IFR conditions with his drinking problem, with his heart condition. So all those stacked up caused him to crash. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody give a round of applause. Y'all understand that? Okay, do y'all, let's see, I can turn off this. Do you guys have your Word document?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to present that? Ready?
Oh, yes, just look.
I'm going to say, tell me when to pull it up.
Because you're
All right, go ahead.
Okay, why don't we talk through the Word document here, please?
There's no one right here.
Do you want me to come back?
Yeah. You can scroll it down a little bit. You go for the jobs.
All right. So our assigned jobs, I was the president. Our investigating officer was Veronica. Our pilot is Joey, and our flight surgeon was Rafael.
So what we did was we went to the crash site and we found the four corners first, and it was a pretty small area because it nosedived, so there weren't too many parts scattered around. So we found all the parts, and then we kind of centralized to the nose, and we decided, since there was no fire, the angle of attack is what killed the pilot.
All right. What we discovered was not a factor was the condition of the plane. It passed its pre-flight inspection. It had plenty of fuel, so it didn't run out of fuel. There was no electrical problems because there was not a fire present. And what else wasn't a factor? Sorry.
The cable, it was snapped, but it wasn't a factor.
Oh, the cable on the rudder was snapped, but that happened when the tail came off, not when it was flying. So there was nothing wrong with the plane itself.
All right, what was a factor was his health, his drinking, and the conditions of flight. So when he lost control of the plane, it just nosedived at a steep angle, and he gained speed until he crashed.
All right, so when the plane crashed at a steep angle, we figured that at a high velocity, we figured that the pilot was not conscious at the time of the crash because he was an experienced pilot and he would have just flown the plane if he was able to. He wouldn't have let that happen since there was no problems with the plane itself. When the plane scorpioned, that also shows us there's a steep angle of attack. Again, the pilot was probably not conscious when this happened. And the wrinkling on the side of the plane was also an indicator at the steep angle.
Our findings on the pilot, he was 53 years old and he had a heart condition as well as trauma from his life. So that was also a factor in the stress. So that high of a stress situation would cause the pilot to have a heart attack.
And again, the findings on the plane, there was no issues with the plane itself. It was full of fuel, no electrical problems, no mechanical problems.
And the findings at the crash site, there was no fire present because the fuel was still in where it should be, but fuel was also not a factor because it was full, as we talked about before, and the brake cable was snapped, but that's because it scorpioned.
And our conclusion again was his family situation, his drinking, and the poor flight conditions caused too much stress on his heart. We believe he had a heart attack in the air, which led to his crash.
And we found another similar crash, but that wasn't because he passed out, but it was a Varga, and it was a different situation, but it was the same plane.
And again, how to prevent this in the future is we suggested maybe the FAA should monitor the bottle to throttle time a little more closely to avoid crashes like this happening.
That is our crash. Thank you.
Okay, stay up there. This is the practice of him. All right, so round the room, constructive criticism. Anybody have any thoughts? This is their practice. This is not their actual presentation. Two of the family members. Two of the group members are gone. They're like family. All righty. So around the room, give us constructive criticism, positively and negatively.
Just reading from like the screen and stuff. That's something you'll fix.
We're also going to print out the slides and put them.
Okay,
so we're
good
not-
idea.
we're
Just so
not-
that's techniques for public speaking.
Some things in the PowerPoint and the essay seem kind of repetitive, so like you kind of
Yeah.
get the same information a few more times.
Okay, all right.
Do you guys know how you guys are gonna separate it when you're?
Yeah, we had originally separated into 4, so it was kind of hard trying to do it with 2 people.
Okay,
So it'll be more
fluid.
fluid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought the pictures were fantastic, right? That was pretty cool, having little smiley faces, I like that. Guys, any other constructive criticism?
You guys seem to know what you were talking about. Like you seem confident in what you were saying.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
It's pretty good for practice.
Yeah, it is. It was a good for practice. I did not show you. You can go online, of course, and see FAA products that are released. You got a lot of the information, but you didn't have the terminology. So you need to go back and change some of the terminology. Did we ever I'm sure you watched all our online classes, did we ever mention anything about conclusions? No. There's no conclusions in a flight investigation. There are findings. What's next? Causes and recommendations. Okay? And so, when you put up the stuff about the findings, especially on the PowerPoint, a finding, what's a finding, guys?
Evidence.
Evidence.
Chronological listing of facts. Facts, okay? So some of your PowerPoint that you put up, you said, oh, he was this, da-da-da-da, but it wasn't in chronological order. Pilot had a pre-existing drinking condition. He, went through counseling or whatever. He had unhealthy lifestyle choices. He was a smoker or whatever drinker had. Was diagnosed with coronary heart disease. Passed the medical physical for the FAA. Was denied the medical physical. Came back. You go chronological. I mean, from the day that he was born or the day the plane was born. If the plane was with a problem, mechanical problem. All the way into pilot fell asleep and crashed the plane. Recovery people were at the plane site, recovered the body. I mean, that's the end, right? Chronological, so those are all the findings. And then a cause, which I didn't see here, I saw recommendation. A cause would be 1 or 2 of those findings taken out, would allow all that to happen, and it'd be safe. Okay, so therefore you have literally a listing, finding number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to 12 or 15 or whatever it is, till they crash, and then your cause is finding 4. The plane wing broke. If the plane wing didn't break, it wouldn't have crashed. So that's the cause, and the recommendation is how to fix that. And then you go over here, these 1 or 2 causes, recommendations how to fix the cause. Your conclusions were in the ballpark, right? I mean, they're in the ballpark, but it was kind of nebulous, because you want a recommendation specifically like FAA verify 3 times a year that airline pilots were within their drinking or whatever. I mean, you have to have it really specific, because in the recommendation fixes the causes, which fixes the accident. It doesn't happen again. So go with the terminology there. Get that a little bit more specifically. Okay. What else? Anything else? So y'all have a hero presentation, or you got a plan for that?
We will when we have.
We will when we have. Okay, and this is SAL 1, and so your presentation is when? Wednesday.
Wednesday is the real thing. Yep.
Wednesday's the real thing. Okay, everybody give him a round of applause, please. Okay, and let me cut this one off here.